Hey, so I'm gonna make a new video on my League Starter Legend Arrow Deadeye, which I still believe to be the best League Starter for softcore and also solo self-found softcore. So this build essentially received 0 nerfs in the patch. I got a slight nerf on Sniper's Mark, but yeah, Legend Arrow itself and Deadeye are still untouched. Only Tornado Shot was nerfed, but yeah. Let me do a map showcase real quick, then I'll talk about the whole build. So I plan to have this gear around day 2. It's usually when I have it. And yeah, this build is very fast. Very strong for Legion and really good for whatever farm you really want to do for maps. And highly recommend. You can never go wrong with LA Deadeye. As Legion in the new patch is still going to be one of the best day 1 and day 2 currency makers. And yeah, as you can see, the clear is just really good. Yeah, compared to last league, there's only a slight few changes, primarily in the new transfigure gems, since I'm now using stuff like transfigure frenzy of onslaught in the more endgame version for essentially free onslaught. Yeah, very nice there. But compared to last patch, it's practically untouched. You just no longer want to swap to tornado shot, and you just stay as LA forever. Yeah, just go to map balls here, and then we'll talk about the build. I'll just get the last legion for time purposes. Yeah, single target, you know, very good. Boss like still instantly dies. So yeah, let's talk about the build now. So I made a full leveling PoB. This is strictly just for leveling. You have all your gems here. I made a full note section, which I'll go over in a second. I also made multiple skill trees as you progress and level up. So level 21 all the way to level 78. And then usually around 78, this is when I swap to crit. Usually the start of yellow maps or end of white maps. So you just follow this tree like so. Just scroll down, and yeah, very easy progression, very nice. It's overall extremely fast leveler. Definitely one of the fastest levelers there is. Not as fast as like Templar for speedrunning, but yeah, it's a very fast leveler. I also have the Ascendancy progression here as well. You want Gather Winds, then you want Far Shot, and then you want Endless Munitions. So let's talk about the notes real quick. So yeah, I have all the skills you want to use here at every single point. So if you're in Act 1, attempt to use all these skills. Now, of course, you don't always have the gem slots, the gem sockets in Act 1. So I recommend if you have to drop something, drop like some utility stuff. You know, like Sniper's Mark. Why you want an Act 1, if you have to drop it, then drop it. Having skills is more important than Sniper's Mark if you don't have the sockets. Ideally, you do have all the sockets. Here is like essentially two links you can do. Frost Blink and Blink Arrow, and then Sniper's Mark. You should have all these sockets in Act 1. We help Illyria in this build, so for me, I think Illyria is the strongest option to take up early league, and then you can later respec into +2 passive points. It only costs 20 bit ores, which is practically nothing these days. So yeah, Illyria is very strong. I respec to +2 passive points when I get my cluster jewel. Once you have cluster jewel, then yeah, I think you can respec Illyria. But the early res and crit multi just helps a lot. The res especially, it's very nice, as Ranger is essentially one of the few classes that doesn't really get help with early res. The only thing you really take is Viralist compared to other classes, let's say like Templar, where you just get a bunch of free res at the start. So yeah, I like Lyra a lot. It's very nice for early mapping and just early leveling, makes gear a little bit easier. I also have like just one reminder here for finish this quest, the White Beast. This is for your second Quicksilver. A lot of people tend to forget this, so yeah, just have it here. Then level 12 to 27. So this is like Act 2/Act 3. This is before you go to your final setup. You would now swap to Rain of Arrows, and you can also swap to Legend Arrow if you want. If you're wondering what's better, Rain of Arrows or Legend Arrow for leveling, I asked Havoc this. Havoc is a known speedrunner, and he said Rain of Arrows is better than LA for leveling, but it's only better by like 10 or so minutes. So if you want to play LA for the entire leveling campaign, you can. It's barely worse than Rain of Arrows, but Rain of Arrows is better for leveling and will be slightly smoother because it has a little bit more damage as well. So yeah, you can do either or. I prefer Rain of Arrows, but I did do some LA leveling tests as well. You can't really go wrong with either. If you are doing LA, then you may want Legend Arrow LMP. If you have a 2 link, you add on Mirage Archer. And your fourth link, you can add anything. It can be Trinity, Uncle Damage Attacks, it can be Volatility or Air to Cold. Whatever fourth gem socket you have, just fit the color you need. Yep. This is also where we swap our auras, Position, Anger, and Haste. Keep in mind you can't use Anger and Haste until you grab Charisma. I grab Charisma around the mid of Act 3 / end of Act 3. Before you grab Charisma, you just want to replace Anger with Herald of Ice, and then use Haste, Haste, Herald of Ice, and Precision. And you can also drop Precision. You don't need this. As long as your accuracy is higher than your life, you're fine. So if your accuracy is higher than your life, then you can take off Precision and save some mana there. Now, why is that important? It's because this entire level tree resolves around Precise Technique. Precise Technique gives you 40% more attack damage if accuracy rating is higher than maximum life. So yeah, just make sure your accuracy is always higher than maximum life. It's very easy to check. All you gotta do is hit C in game, check your accuracy, and if that's higher than your life, then you're fine. If it's lower than your life, then make sure to grab more accuracy nodes somewhere. So Acuity, this bow wheel, this bow mastery for 100 accuracy rating per green second equipped bow. These are all very, very strong options. Or Precision. Yeah, just want to mention it real quick. At level 28, you swap to Artillery Ballista. Now, some people like the Mana Forge Arrow setups. I asked Havoc once again, and he said both are very, very strong. And you can do either or, and it's just personal preference. So personally, I prefer Artillery Ballista, and then I eventually do swap the Mana Forge Arrows after I complete my Atlas. But yeah, this is Artillery Ballista setup, just because I think it's really easy compared to Mana Forge Arrows. And also, the totems have a lot of value and benefit. They essentially can distract mobs, almost like taunting them. So they take aggro over mobs, which is like essentially add a layer of defense. You can also kind of like preload your damage, before a boss spawns. You summon all your totems, and then you can start attacking, right? Some preloaded damage there that you don't have as much with Mana Forge Arrows. Yeah, I mean, both are fine though. Play which one you want. I prefer Ballistas, so this guy's for Ballistas. And once again, all your gems are listed here. The last two things I want to mention is that I swapped to Lightning Arrow. If you're playing Rain of Arrows, I personally swapped to Lightning Arrow when I finished my third lab. So once I have Endless Munitions, that's when I swapped to Lightning Arrow. There's also a very nice quiver vendor recipe you can do. So if you're a leveling, you can get a Hyries Bite unique quiver, which is very nice for leveling. This quiver, I have it right here. It gives you attributes in all stats, so it's very nice. Strength, dex, and intelligence, flat cold damage, attack speed, life on hit, and increased area of effect, which does help both Rain of Arrows and LA. So this quiver is not mandatory for leveling. You don't have to do this vendor recipe, but it is just very nice as it just fixes all your stats and it is pretty good DPS. So if you do want to make it, I do have the vendor recipe right here. You need a rare Onyx Amulet, a normal Shark Tooth Quiver, this cannot be magic or rare, an Orb of Chance, and then Rain of Arrows with quality. So the easiest way to get Rain of Arrows with quality is the first lab. You can add quality to your gem, so use that quality to your gem on a separate Rain of Arrows, not your main one, so you don't have to be leveled, of course. And yeah, that's how you get Rain of Arrows with quality. Last thing, this is just a regex for vendors. So if you don't know what this is, essentially you copy this, and then this is very easy for early on, by the way. Yeah, you copy this regex link. So when you do a vendor in your first town, you paste this in, and this will essentially filter out every bad item that you don't want to see. So in this vendor, we got nothing. But essentially what this shows boots of movement speed, and this shows 3 and 4 links. So it'll show like double green blue, double green red, triple green, and then any 4 link, and then any boots with movement speed. So it's very, very useful to spend less time in town, right? You talk to the vendor, paste this in, go through the pages, nothing highlights, you move on. It's on the highlights, you can hover over it. Doesn't mean you actually buy it, but yeah, just want to include that. So that's it for the leveling. I'll have this link down below, of course. So let me go over the endgame variant real quick. Well, the multiple variants. So yeah, once again, I have notes here. This notes is only how to craft your bow and quiver. You can read this for yourself. There's also multiple guides on YouTube for this as well, but I thought I might as well put in the notes here as well. So once again, I have multiple trees. This depends on where you are in the build, and I have multiple item swaps. So match these with the trees. So if you're in a starter items, then match it with the starter tree. Same thing if you go to mid/high end, then just go with the mid. Third one, you match with the third, right? And the last one, make sure you match with the L1 Avoid. So yeah, this is just a pretty standard LA setup. We're using uniques, Hyries, Rat's Nest, the other Hyries, Death Rush, and Bisco's Leash. Some people prefer Shadows and Dust gloves, but I like Bisco's Leash because the quant and rarity for me, day 1 and day 2, has a lot of value when there's a lot of uniques worth a lot of currency early on. So I personally prefer Bisco's Leash, but if you want to use Shadows and Dust on your glove slot instead for Rampage, that's fine, yeah. We are using Bisco's for the Rampage. Rampage is extremely strong for mapping, especially when doing stuff like Legion. Early on, the only uniques you're using is Rat's Nest. This thing is like 1 Chaos, day 1, maybe 2C, and it's just very strong for how cheap it is. You know, you're getting attack speed, movement speed, and critical strike chance. That movement speed is very, very nice for early on when your character is quite slow. Also, the rarity is kind of nice. Once again, day 1 uniques worth a lot of currency, and a little bit of rarity does get you slightly more uniques. With that said, you can use other helmets. I have the Vodos here, and I also have the Gold. You can also use a Rat helmet if you want. The Gold is nice if you take Shrine Nodes and Atlas. The Vodos is nice. It's slightly less damage than the Rat's Nest, but it does give you more movement speed and Chaos Res. But yeah, Rat's Nest is more damage, and it also tends to be cheaper day 1. The Vodos can be like 5 or 6 Chaos. Not that it matters too much, but yeah, just wanted to mention that. But your starter setup is just basic rares, High Reach Truth, and Rat's Nest. So High Reach Truth is personally when I swap to crit. This amulet on day 1, I think, is around like 10 or so Chaos. Just keep in mind the roll ranges of this amulet is pretty huge. It rolls from 25 crit multi to 50 crit multi. You definitely want like 35 plus crit multi, if not like 45% plus crit multi. So yeah, I swap to crit as soon as I can, which is usually around when I get a High Reach Truth, which tends to be around level 75 to 78. You know, level 80 it's fine. Until then I play the non-crit Precise Techniques variant. Yeah, all you need to swap to crit, by the way, is a bow with crafted crit and some flat LE. You know, preferably 600 to 700 LE DPS, perfectly fine. Craft crit, and you're good to go. And that bow can literally do all of white, yellow, and red maps. Now, of course, when you use something like Eater and Exarch, you do want a slightly better bow. And then, yes, this build can easily do Quest, Eater, and Exarch. You can also do Maven, Uber Elder if you are skilled enough. As a bow build, you have to dodge a lot more, so if you're not experienced in those fights, then you would struggle with a build like this. You might have to buy a carry instead. But if you have Maven and Uber Elder before, then yeah, this build can do it, no issue whatsoever. I've done it multiple times already. It's not that hard at all. So yeah, also have all the skills here. So I also want to talk about the skills. So we have the starter skills and then the mid/high end. So starter, you use your starter, and the mid and high end you use for all these other ones. And I also have Mana Forge Arrow swap. So personally, I swap to Mana Forge Arrows. And Mana Forge Arrow setup is using Storm Rain and Blast Rain over the totem. So you over Artillery Ballista. So yeah, I personally swap to Mana Forge Arrows once I finish my Atlas and I'm blasting Legion. As when you're blasting Legion, the Mana Forge Arrow setup feels a lot better to play with, as it doesn't feel good to place on totems during every single Legion. So I do feel faster with the Mana Forge Arrows. See, that's personally when I swap. Now, of course, like I said, you can use Mana Forge Arrows starting from like level 12. You don't have to use totems. Personally, I prefer totems. That's why I cleared Atlas with them. So yeah. Outside of that, just talk through this real quick. Standard Light Hour setup. Artillery Ballista, you just put this down for single target damage. Sniper's Mark setup. Standard Gray Steelskin Haste Blood Rage. Now in a new patch, you cannot put Steelskin on left click, which I do have currently on this character. So the fix around this, if you don't want to manually press it, is that you will essentially have to use Steelskin with the automation support. I couldn't put it in here since PoB didn't have it updated. But yeah, essentially what you'll do is remove Blood Rage here. Instead, put Blood Rage on your Sniper's Mark setup. It doesn't really matter where Blood Rage goes, it can go anywhere. And then you have an extra socket right here. And then you can put your automation support. Make sure it's only linked with Steelskin. So yeah, if you want to automate Steelskin and not put on left click, then use automation Steelskin. If you don't mind pressing Steelskin, as you can't put on left click next patch, then just put on any keybind and press it. The choice is up to you. So yeah, just want to mention that. And of course, we have a Frenzy of Onslaught, Power Charge on Crit, Mana Forge Arrow setup. So this setup's really, really strong and got buffed last patch. And this is what I'm talking about. This is pretty much the only new thing about this build. Now with this Frenzy setup, you now get Frenzies, Power Charge on Crit, and you're getting Onslaught, all from a 3-link. It's absolutely really insane how much utility we are getting here for a 3-link. We're getting 3 very strong buffs. And yeah, Frostbling's here once again. Frostbling can go anywhere, Haste and Grace can go anywhere, and Blood Rage can go anywhere. They don't have to be linked to anything. So yeah, Frenzy of Onslaught's very, very, very strong. Do try to get this as soon as you can. I will say it's pretty much mandatory to have. While you don't need it, it is just free movement speed and attack speed, and it's very good on bosses as well. So yeah, and of course you have precision from your amulet. So yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I'm going to leak store this build. I'm going to swap into MF. I also do have some MF variants here as well, which won't be in this video, but will be in future videos, as I've been working on them all on stream every single day. So yeah, this build is very, very strong. You can get all 4 Void Stones. You can do some of the best early league farming currency, stuff like Expedition, stuff like Legion. Personally, I just do Legion. But yeah, it's still the best starter for softcore in my opinion. But yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and do make sure you check out the notes. And like I said, do swap around your skill trees and your item sets, as I have multiple set up here, depending on your budget range. I guess one last thing is this Ailment of Void setup. The only thing you need for Ailment of Void is an Ancestral Vision, and then on your boots, you need chance to avoid elemental ailments. Before that, you will be using Soul of the Brine King and Soul of Aberith to have slight ailment immunity. Not quite, but it's better than nothing. So yeah, I use these two. Then when you have your Ailment of Void set up, you're good to go essentially. But yeah, that's it.